Good evening, folks. Welcome to the workshop of June 3rd, 2019. I'm now going to call this workshop to order. First on the list is an update on the recycling committee that we voted on last council meeting, with Assistant City Manager Phil Kroll presenting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. So you'll notice in the information sheet that I provided, spoke about one needing to create the purpose, the composition, the term, and the outcomes that you would like from this new committee. This is a draft. What I'm hoping to do is be able to get some input from you tonight on what you would like to see in this so that we can create the charge for the committee, and then we could start the process for the selection committee to start bringing in volunteers that would be willing to serve on the committee. We've already received 3 or 4 inquiries about serving on that committee, so having this and ready to go will be important. I also provided you some history, and I think that that was just, I just went back and took a look at what's the council action been, at least in the last 8 years, regarding the various recycling committees. You'll notice that we've had 2, and then a third one was asked to come back with a updated presentation to the council. So I thought it'd be important for you to see that, and if you have any questions on that, I can certainly try to answer it. I wasn't directly involved in these, but I did go through and read the minutes and looked at the council actions, so I might be able to provide you some information on that. When it comes down to the purpose, it's about studying, recommending, and reporting on the programs, models that are looking to be implemented in response to the changing marketplace as far as recycling. The draft of this came from looking at, like I think was said during the last council meeting, we're not the only community that's looking at this across the country. So I probably looked at well over 10 different communities, some of their most recent that have looked at recycling committees, and took pieces of it that I thought met with what we are faced with here and comments that you have made at previous meetings. The group itself, I chose 7 members. If you would like to see more than that, we can do that. But it seemed like 7 was a good working group number. That was about the average for most of the committees that I looked at. You had talked about a 6-month term, and these would all be scheduled public meetings. People could come and attend. And then 4 areas of focus. 1, identifying the key impacts of current recycling program. Compare our current model with different models that we could adopt for you to consider. Identify our current costs for recycling and compare with other municipalities which have adapted to the changing market. And then create a public education awareness campaign for the recommended changes. But just note on that last bullet, that is in alignment with the comp plan. I did go back and look at the comp plan to see what the comp plan had talked about regarding solid waste and recycling. One of the major focuses within recycling was the need for the city to have a recycling or a campaign to educate, promote, and communicate what is our process, what does it look like, and how can people participate. And then the last paragraph was, I thought it'd be helpful with a quick turnaround of 6 months to have the committee come in September just to give an update status where they are. That way there you could redirect the committee if need be, and they still had time to be able to put any additional information together that you would need before their final report, which would be in December. So I'm open for any questions or suggestions.
Very good, thank you. Open, bring this back to the council. Councilors, any questions for the Assistant City Manager or recommendations? Councilor Zlanya?
Thank you very much for your work on this. A couple of things. One, it says here in the this purpose, composition, term, outcomes that 6-month term shall conduct a minimum of 6 scheduled meetings. In the minutes, it was a 6-month term with the option to expand it to 12 months with the city council voting on that. I wonder if we can include that just so it's clear, particularly for people who decide to become involved in this. And we have in here Auburn residents. You know, I wonder, we've been doing some working, and the city manager can speak to this as well, on the ag ordinance creation committee, I guess is what you, working group. And part of what has come through in that group is that to sort of lay out a few areas of expertise that we want represented on the group. I don't know exactly what that is, but somebody, and I don't know if it's Mr. Goyette who would participate in this, or who would be, so that there's some people who have some particular expertise around recycling.
We would definitely have staff present that wouldn't make up the 7. So staff would certainly, those with that knowledge would certainly be at the meetings.
But I think, and maybe if I could just clarify your point, bringing people into the group as members of the group that are not Auburn residents, though have a specific background in the topic at hand, in this case, recycling. metals and
Correct,
so
yeah,
forth.
thank you.
I'll agree. I'm a very big proponent of bringing in smart people from wherever they live in order to help Auburn solve a problem. Though by protocol, or I should say precedence, any type of vote can only happen with Auburn residents. So again, this is up for the entire council to kind of agree on or give conversation on. If you want to have, call it an associate member of the committee, a non-voting, non-resident member, versus 7 permanent or voting members of the committee, would that be?
Yeah, I think
would
that's a
that
good
address-
compromise, so that people could be running, perhaps on a particular issue with recycling, so that they're coming to speak specifically about something. And the committee itself could decide or help to decide along with city staff on who should be brought in.
Council, do we have agreement on that?
I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Voting members,
need the-
residents only, non-voting members, subject matter experts?
Yes,
Okay.
because it is our city and it should be our citizens who vote.
Mr. Mayor, I would say we have to be very cautious on that, though, because we had previous committees that nobody knows who are voting, who aren't voting, and they watch, committee meetings, and they think somebody's got a lot of influence over the committee who's not an Auburn resident. So I think we got to be really careful. Because my thoughts here, we've got to look at the viability of it first and find out what we can and can't do. There's a broad bunch of folks that will recycle at any cost. And I'm not sure if we want our committee to be heading down that road, recycle at any cost. So I'd be a little bit nervous about how we have people that are quote-unquote on the board that aren't Auburn residents, period. Maybe a consultant that's hired or brought in to give a speech, or a guest speaker, yes.
Well,
But not
remember,
somebody that's actually on.
It will be
the-
public meetings, and I think that'll be important for the 7 members to encourage a content
as long as
expert
they're
to come to
guests,
the
they're
meeting,
not
and
part of the
participate.
committee, right.
But it would be the 7 members that you already have a process for selecting committee members. It would go through that process, whether I wouldn't maybe not call them associate members, but have those individuals that would come to the meeting but not go through that selection process.
And we've done this now that we're talking this out, which is great. We've done this before. The mayor's ad hoc group, we had guests that were there that spoke during public comment quite often, and they're at every meeting. They weren't members of the committee, though. As long as I think I think the bottom line is to encourage people that are subject matter experts on specific tasks to be there to help and facilitate versus controlling.
Right,
Put
and
that
they wouldn't be,
language- Sorry.
I was just going to say, they wouldn't be voting members, and they wouldn't necessarily come to every single meeting. I think just knowing that we may have wonderful Auburn citizens who know a lot about this, but it may be necessary to bring in other people to
And we
just
could do
give
that
some
as guests, but not
information.
I don't think they should be counted as members of the
No,
committee.
I agree.
At all.
Yes.
I had a couple.
I'll put that language in there that
Thank you.
encourages that, so.
I had a comment on number 3. You talked about identify the current cost for recycling, compare with other municipalities. I think the first thing I'd like to see is have us go to what we can do the research to find out ways that we can save on recycling costs now. Now, that may be